Hey everyone, welcome back to another Magic the Gathering Standard video. I'm Sean, aka 4Ice Counters, aka Counter Games on TCG Player. Want to talk to you today about the banned and restricted announcement for November 10th, 2025. As was pretty widely expected, Vivi was banned in Standard. Alongside Vivi, Screaming Nemesis, and Prof's Eidetic, Prof's Memory, have also been banned. And what I want to focus on in the wake of this announcement is how the bannings will shape Standard's now new format. Specifically, I'm thinking of a couple of cards. Number one being our friend Quantum Riddler. Riddler might just be the best creature in Standard, period. End of sentence. It's a really impactful card, really powerful card draw engine, as well as obviously a 4/6 flyer. There's also some shenanigans you can do with its warp ability, blink effects, kind of fun ways that players are trying to break this card. I would expect Quantum Riddler's price to continue rising. I talked to someone at an RCQ not long ago that we agreed that this is probably just going to be a $50 card. You can see here in the trend that since its release, that is just a very steep incline that the price of the card is taking. Right now, you can ignore these lightly played cards. These aren't actually available. The cheapest version you can get is a near mint foil copy for the lowly price of $39 plus $20 shipping. Now obviously that's a bit of an outlier, but beyond that, you'll see there are lightly played and near mint foil editions available for $40 each. You actually have to go to page 2 right now to find a non-foil version. I'm actually selling 2 copies, which isn't the point of this video. But yeah, feel free to grab those from Counter Games if you need them. But you'll see, just generally speaking, demand for this card is really high and stock is really low. Anytime you're on TCG Player and you see only like 50 to under 100 listings, that's a card that players are scooping up every chance they get. There's the borderless version of the card, which I think this art is pretty awful. To each their own. No knock on the artist. Just like it's just not the style of card that I would want to play in my deck. I'd prefer actually just the original. This is also now pushing a $50 per copy price point. You'll see here that the first chance you have to buy 2 or more copies, it's going to run you $50. Shipping is included, which is nice. I think the big winner coming out of this banning, besides Quantum Riddler, is going to be our good friend Dimir Midrange and its Harbinger of Darkness, Kaito, the Bane of Nightmares. This is a highly affordable card right now, considering how powerful Kaito is in Standard. There are nearly 300 listings available. You can get a whole play set for under $75. Pretty easily right now, which for the Dimir Midrange deck, that's a good deal. The Dimir Midrange deck is likely going to be a top tier deck in the new format. It doesn't mean, there are going to be versions of the Izzet deck running around, versions of Mono Red running around, even with the bannings. But Dimir Midrange, I think, is going to come back into the fold. So if you need copies of Kaito, now is probably as good a time as any to grab them. Historically, I think the $27, $28, it's like the high point of the card. You can see we're in a little bit of a dip. I wouldn't be surprised. So you'll see where this card really spiked was ahead of SCG Con Atlanta last year, when Dimir Midrange kind of officially made its mark on the scene. And it's had some price fluctuation since then. Most recently in August, it was a $23, $24 card. I expect it to go back up to a $23, $24 card here in the coming weeks and months, especially ahead of SCG Con Atlanta. It'll be interesting to see what impact Avatar has on the format in terms of price swings. Ouroboroid, I think, is the other creature we have to pay attention to. It's already a $20+ card, only 137 listings. I would expect the mono green and Simic players to come out of the forest, out of the woodwork, to try and push for more top cut. I expect the Simic aggro deck to make more appearances at high-level tournaments, with Vivi being banned as well as Screaming Nemesis being banned. Right now, you can see, most sellers only have a copy or two available. You're not getting a playset of Ouroboroid without spending close to probably $100 right now, and even that might be on the cheaper side. You can see that it's at about its height price-wise compared to its history since it was formally released and came out of pre-release. I don't know how much higher this card's going to go in cost. We'll have to see what kind of impact green and blue-green decks make on the format as we move forward. Just a couple of things I want to point out here from my friends. This Osier Accidental Deepest Might. This is an expensive card, I think, for Commander. And I would anticipate seeing mono red players incorporate more copies of this card into the deck. I wouldn't be surprised if cards like Razorkin Needlehead and Nova Hellkite came up in price a little bit to offset. These red decks are going to have to replace 4 copies of Screaming Nemesis. How they do that is going to vary, but it's going to create, I think, some pressure on the availability of the best cards remaining in the deck, which will be the Hellkite, the Needlehead, and I think this Osier card is probably due to either keep its price or perhaps even go up in price. A couple of things to note. Enduring Curiosity is a staple of not just the Simic deck, but also the Dimir Midrange deck. There's a world where that card goes back up maybe to a $15 or $20 card. And then control decks, be interesting to see. Control decks are usually more expensive because of their mana base, right? That's something that's maybe a little less interesting to track than like the price of threats in the format. But I could see a world where Voice of Victory continues to become more expensive. Perhaps Elspeth Stormslayer becomes a bit more expensive. And then kind of my sleeper deck of the format is any version of Orzhov or Esper Pixie. This was a pretty powerful deck before Vivi and Mono Red kind of ran over the format. And it's incredibly affordable. Like, the most expensive card by a mile is the Verge land, which you don't even have to play that card. If you don't want to, you could probably build a version of this deck for like $50 or less. So something to keep in mind if you're looking. If you're looking for a budget option for your next tournament, your next locals, Orzhov Pixie is probably due to make a run at either tier 1 or kind of a high tier 2 deck. So anyway, just wanted to share some thoughts. The banning is live. Very glad to see that Vivi is finally banned. I personally, I don't mind Screaming Nemesis in the format. As a standard best of 3 player, I think this card is not very fun to play against, but I've also seen some pretty cool interactions. Like, I've seen, in an RCQ, I had a mono red player win the match by using their Witchstalker Frenzy on their own Nemesis to hit me in the face. And that's perfectly, to me, that's not unenjoyable. It's, hey, you gotta win the game however you gotta win. And then for Prof's memory, I think this card is sort of it's bearing a lot of weight. I could see a world where it needed to be banned. I don't think that this card is as problematic as like Up the Beanstalk. Yes, it's 2 mana. Yes, it's an enchantment, which is harder to remove. And yes, for the card draw decks, it could create, a lot of power and toughness fairly quickly. I think this one might have been premature. That might be a hot take. You can disagree with me in the comments. Are there any cards in Standard that you wish had been banned and weren't? Or are any of these 3 cards that in your mind should not have been banned? Let me know in the comments your thoughts. Let me know what you think about which cards are going to be rising in price. Standard is definitely a format of threats over removal. Threats will likely continue to be the most expensive cards in the format, especially when you think of big standard tournaments or standard events that are going to be upcoming. Quantum Riddler, Kaito, Ouroboroid, Enduring Curiosity, Elspeth Stormslayer. These are cards that jump out at me as the defining threats of the format moving forward, and I expect their price to illuminate that accordingly. Anyway, this is Sean, 4 Ice Counters, Counter Games on TCG Player. Have a great day. Bye.